All right, scholars, here we are today at lesson 55. If you don't yet have your blue reading book in your packet, press pause and go grab those things. You will need them for our work today. All right, lesson 55, column 1. That first word is Tokyo. What word? Right, Tokyo. Tokyo is the largest city in Japan. What's the name of the largest city in Japan? Yes, Tokyo. Word 2 is oxygen. What word? Right, oxygen. Word 3 is guest. What word? Right, guest. So guest either was or will be a spelling word very soon. Word 4 is the word pressure. What word? Right, pressure. Pressure is a push. So if you press your hands together, right, that push that you're feeling, right, this hand pushing against this hand, and this hand pushing against this hand, that's pressure. Right? That push is the pressure. Word 5 is adult. What word? Adult. Word 6 is guy. What word? Good, guy. Let's do column 1 the quick way. Ready? Tokyo, oxygen, guest, pressure, adult, guy. Moving to column 2. Scholars, column 2, parts of the words are underlined, the first syllable of each. I'm going to give you the syllables. Let's put the words together. Word 1, class and room make? Yes, classroom. Word 2, fail and your make? Right, failure. 3, mess and age make? You got it, message. 4, off and is make? Office. 5 is a compound word. Space and ship make? Spaceship. Right? Just like classroom, class and room. Number 6 is a name that we're going to hear in today's story. Sid and knee make Sydney. Let's do column 2 the quick way. When I touch my nose. Classroom, failure, message, office, spaceship, Sydney. Sydney, did you notice, has a capital letter on it? It's because it's a proper noun. It names a specific person. Right, remember, a noun names a person, place, thing, or idea, and a proper noun names a specific person, place, thing, or idea. All right, column 3. Word 1. What word? Yes. You certainly remember we had that word in the last lesson. Word 2. What word? Right, underlined. Word 3 was also in the last lesson. Do you remember that word? Good. Did you say it correctly? Word 4. What word? Yes, improvement. Word 5. What word? Right, worried. Scholars, many of these words, actually all of these words, have suffixes on them. Lee, edt, and ment, right, are all suffixes added to those root words. Let's read column 3 the quick way. Here we go. When I touch my chin. Certainly, underlined, correctly, improvement, worried. I know you're worried we're not going to read the story, but we are. Scholars, if you want to practice any of those vocabulary words again, press pause for a moment. Read through those words if you want to practice them more. Otherwise, we are ready to move to the story. Waiting for a letter. Wendy's fingers were sore from writing. She had spent most of the last 4 hours writing answers to test items. Now she was reading over her answers a final time. The woman with gray hair walked to the front of the room. All right, she said. The time is up. Stop writing. Turn your test booklet over. Make sure that your name is on it and pass it forward. So, scholars, about how long had she been writing and working? 4 hours. That's a long time to work on a test, isn't it? And what part of Wendy was sore? Yes, her fingers. Suddenly, Wendy felt very frightened. Had she answered all the questions correctly? There were a couple of items that she wasn't sure about. She wasn't sure how fast Traveler 3 went, or when it was built. So, scholars, we learned that in the last story, Traveler 4, right, could travel, was it 1,000 miles per second? But she also had a question about Traveler 3, which makes me think Traveler 4 must be the latest spaceship. But some of those earlier spaceships, right, one of them was Traveler 3, and it makes me think there was probably a Traveler 2 and a Traveler 1. So, interesting. Wendy knew many facts about Traveler 1, Traveler 2, and Traveler 3. Traveler 1 held 200 passengers, but it was a very slow ship compared to Traveler 4. Traveler 1 could go only 1 mile per second. So, scholars, if we were going to compare and contrast those, right, compare what's a way Traveler 1 and Traveler 4 are alike? Did you say they can both carry 200 passengers? That would be a way they're alike. Compare. Now, what if we contrast? What's a way they're different? Did you say Traveler 1 could only go 1 mile per second? And we know no Traveler 4 can go 1,000 miles per second. So that's a lot faster. Right? Traveler 1 took almost 12 years to go from Earth to Jupiter. Traveler 4 could make the same trip in 4.5 days. So think how much faster that is. That same trip now, 4.5 days instead of 12 years. Wow. Traveler 2 could go faster than Traveler 1. Traveler 3 could go faster yet. But Wendy wasn't sure how fast Traveler 3 could go. She had written that it could go 45 miles per second, and she hoped her answer was right. You'll be getting a letter within a few weeks, the gray-haired woman said. So the story had been telling us about these different travelers, right? Traveler 1, 2, 3, and 4. But now it's switched back to us being in the testing room, right? And the woman is talking again. The woman continued. Your letter will tell you either that you have been selected to go on the trip or that you haven't been selected. So, scholars, everyone's going to get a letter, and their letter is going to say one of two things. What's one thing your letter could say? And what's the other thing your letter could say? Right. Hopefully, your two answers were that one of them could say you're going, and one of them, the letter could say you're not going. Then the woman said, I found out just this morning where the trip will go. If you're selected, you'll go to the planet Jupiter and spend nearly a week there. Well, so remember, when she was taking the test, right at the beginning, they knew it was a trip into the solar system, but now they know more details of where. Wendy listened to the words, but she didn't feel excited. She still felt worried about answering the questions correctly. The woman continued, I know that the letter will disappoint most of you. Scholars, let's pause there for a moment. Hold your spot. Why is the letter going to disappoint most of them? Oh, excuse me. That's kind of a tough question to remember, but most of them will be disappointed because do you remember how many of them get to go? Right, 10. And do you remember how many are taking the test? Oh, excuse me. Right, 30. So more people will get the letter that they don't get to go than people who will get to go. Right? 10 will get a letter that says they go. How many are going to get a letter saying they don't get to go? Right, 20. Right? Because of the 30, 10 get to go. So 30 minus 10 is 20. So most of them are going to be disappointed because they're going to get a letter that says they don't get to go. The woman said, "Just remember that you have had a chance to learn a great deal, and you certainly should not feel like a failure if you aren't selected." Tracking fingers or bookmarks, scholars, do you remember where we are? Wendy turned around and looked at the faces of the other students in the room. Some were smiling. Most were serious. The girl directly behind Wendy looked very sad. "What's wrong?" Wendy asked. "I blew it," she said. "I just blew it. I thought I knew this stuff, but my mind seemed to go blank, and I..." She covered her face with her hands. So what does that mean, scholars, if she thinks she blew it? Right? She didn't. It's kind of an idiom, isn't it? Because she didn't blow on her test. Right? Her test's not on fire. What does that mean if you blew it? Right. She thinks she did not do well. And her mind didn't actually go blank. So that's another idiom. What does that mean if your mind goes blank? Right. It means she couldn't remember things. Right? Some of those questions. Wendy turned around and put her hand on the girl's shoulder. "Hey," she said, "maybe you did better than you think." "Yeah," the girl said, and uncovered her face. She tried to smile. The woman in the front of the room said, "Good luck, and thank you." Everybody stood up and started talking at the same time. A lot of students were asking questions like, what was the answer to the question about the mountains in Japan? Wendy turned to the girl who had been sitting behind her. Wendy said, "What's your name?" "Sydney Miller," she said. "Listen," Wendy said. "When they send the list of people who are going on the trip, I'll look for your name. Maybe we'll both make it." "Thanks," Sydney said. And then, scholars, did you notice the ellipsis? Right, that's where we are. So part of the story is missing. We're now going to jump ahead. Let me read a little bit more and see if we can figure out where we are now. The mail usually came to Wendy's house about 11 each morning. So, scholars, that sentence I just read tells about the mail coming to Wendy's house. So, Wendy's back home now. So, we've jumped ahead, right? She's finished taking the test. She left the testing place. She's gone back home, and she's now waiting, right, for the letter. By 11:15, Wendy's math class was over, so she ran to the phone and called her home. For the last 5 days, she had called home at 11:15 each morning. "Hi, Mom," she would say each day. She didn't have to tell her mother why she was calling. Her mother would say, "It hasn't come yet." What is the it? Oh, right, the letter, right? She's waiting for that letter to come. "Oh," Wendy would say. Each time her mother told her that the letter hadn't come, Wendy felt glad and sad. So, scholars, I want you to listen to this. This part's really important, right? She has mixed feelings. So she's feeling glad and sad about the same thing. But listen to why. She felt sad because she hadn't found out whether she was going on the trip. So that made her sad, right? She's sad because she doesn't know if she's going. She felt a little glad because she didn't want the letter to come if it said she wasn't going. So if the letter's bad news, right, she's kind of glad to not know that. But if it's good news, she's sad to not know that. Right? So as she's waiting for the letter, right, she's sad, thinking, I want to find out if I'm going. But then she's also glad because, ooh, I don't want to know if I'm not going. Right? Scholars, I'm going to have you read the rest of this to yourself. Read very carefully because there's an important part related to your homework. All right, press pause and read the end of the story. All right, where was Wendy when she got the message to go to the office? Right, she was at math class. And how did she feel when she went to the office? She felt nervous, didn't she? Like she was in a dream. What message did her mother have for her? So, what was the message? She's going on the trip. So, she was one of the 10 people. Yay! All right, scholars. Remember, I want you to make sure you read this story aloud to a family member, a pet, a stuffy. Read it aloud, practice that fluency, and we'll take a look at your assignment together.